Hey everybody, this is Fago Franklin III with New Stitch Media. Today I am joined by senior editor for ESPN's Undefeated, L.Carter. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Can't complain. It's a beautiful day outside, 50 degrees. So,
Oh,
but before,
okay. Then I
go
won't
ahead.
tell you that it's in the 70s here today in LA.
Oh, see, I'm jealous. I'm a little bit jealous. So, with the holidays going on, what words of what words of encouragement can you give my viewers about the holidays and staying encouraged during this tough time right now?
Yeah, I know it's tough for so many people right now, and my heart truly goes out. And I know, like for myself, 2020 has been just a year of highs and lows, and it's been really difficult, I think, for me to feel comfortable enough to even really celebrate some of the highs because I know what the reality has been like, even with me and my family, but also with certainly what most unfortunately most American families are going through. But I really just want to say, keep the faith because it has to get better. It actually can only, get better from here on out. So just stay the course, because I feel like we're starting to see some breaks in the right direction, and fingers crossed we're going to continue seeing those same breaks.
So, with the pandemic, how have you adjusted and adapted to the unique time?
Yeah, well, for starters, I mean, this is my life. I had to convert one of my bedrooms into a studio, and I started. I mostly am a writer, and that's how I've self-identified for so many years. But a writer who does television. But now it's a struggle for me to think about the last thing that I wrote, and now I thought about it, and it was literally me like kind of swinging in there to write something that felt personal that I wanted to share with people through the written form. But I launched this show, during the pandemic, where I'm interviewing people much in the same way that you're interviewing people, and that has been a significant change of how I normally do business. Also, I travel so much. I'm usually on a flight probably at least once a week, going
Mhm.
somewhere on the set of a film, going to do an interview in someone's home, going to events, premieres, so on and so
Mhm.
forth. And none of those things, have happened since March. So that's also been a significant, change for me too.
What encouraging words can you give people in the media field right now? Because there have been a lot of people that have been laid off and they're just trying to figure this thing out. So, what encouraging words can you give those individuals?
Don't be afraid to ask for help because, and I think it can be challenging for a lot of us because we have pride and we don't want, we have this fear of people looking at us differently and treating us differently. But this is not the time to be shy, and it's not the time to let your pride lead you. Really ask for help, be very vocal about those things, because there probably is someone who is willing to offer that assistance. There are a number of different organizations that are trying to be very mindful about handing out resources to journalists in particular who have lost their jobs. One organization, I'm a member of National Association of Black Journalists, and a network, a studio essentially came to me and said, we have a chunk of money that we would love to give to you guys. What do you think you can do with it? I said, I think we can start a COVID relief, fund for so many journalists who are out of work. And so I'm really happy that those checks are being mailed out right now, like this week, today, to people who need that money, right in time for the holidays. And there were a number of people who had reached out to me privately, saying, I feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't know, like I did lose my job, and I was
Mhm.
like, there are no buts. Apply for this money. That this is what it is here for.
Mhm.
Now is truly not the time to feel any level of shame about where you are right now, because so many people are in the same position. So by all means, amplify your voices and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Now, you just said that you were a member of the NABJ. Can you explain what the NABJ is for people who do not know what that organization represents?
Yeah, so NABJ, it's much like an association, like what the engineers have, like NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. And so we're journalists, and that includes all types of media professionals, from writers, editors, producers, on-air talent, public relations, and people who kind of work in tandem with us. And normally every year we have a live convention like everyone else does. This year it was supposed to be in DC, and unfortunately COVID-19 shut that down. So we did a virtual, conference this year, which was great, and which was a lot of fun, but it was also very different, for us. And one of the things that I do as an entertainment reporter, I chair the Arts Entertainment Task Force, and we bring in, casts and projects to do pre-screens for people, because a lot of our members don't work for companies that can afford, quite frankly, the way that mine can, for example, to have me on a plane every week going places. And so what we really try and do is create an experience so that when people are coming to NABJ to look for jobs, look for opportunities to network, they're also able to do actual work there too. They're able to sit down with, some profile or high profile or prominent actor, director, producer, network executive, and do interviews there and get footage that they can then, take back to their shops at home. And so we were trying to figure out ways to translate that virtually this year. And I think that we did a pretty decent job. We also did a couple of one-offs leading up to NABJ, and we've done some since NABJ, much in that same vein where we can do Q&As. I've hosted a couple for us. So that's where we are. And that's what this is. And and if you're not an NABJ and you want to be, please join. I can't say enough great things about what that organization has meant for me and to me. And I really enjoy being able to kind of pour in and give back what I've gotten from that group.
At what age did you want to become a journalist? And what obstacles did you have to face with becoming a journalist?
Good questions. So I was in 5th grade when, we started talking about what we wanted to be. We grew up, and I think the 5th grade is probably the age when teachers start tracking you. And I said I wanted to be a writer, and there is no vocation, certainly not for a 10-year-old to be a fiction writer. So my teacher, Mrs. Hale, who was the only Black teacher that I had, by the way, throughout the course of until I got to college, she said, well, you could be a journalist, you could work for a newspaper. And I was like, okay, sure. And that kind of stuck with me. And I went to middle school and started working for my school newspaper. And then literally, spent the beginning of my career working for a newspaper, and first 10 years and had a really great time. I started off from Detroit originally. I went to Michigan State. I started off at the Detroit Free Press, and then I moved to Chicago Tribune, and then I left Chicago Tribune and moved to USA Today out here in Los Angeles. And I had a great time covering entertainment. In Detroit, I really got to be there at the beginning of Marshall Mathers, his crazy white dude, getting signed to Dr. Dre's label, and really being able to cover the that Detroit hip hop scene that was really burgeoning at that time. And in Chicago, I wanted to dive into covering Hollywood and kind of learning what that was like and what that experience would be like. And then I left Chicago to take this job at USA Today because I was firmly, covering Hollywood, doing red carpet interviews, going to sets while films were being shot and spending time on those sets. And it was great. I was laid off because newspapers, unfortunately, really started shrinking at that time. And that's really when we were seeing mass layoffs. And of course, the recession was happening. And so I was a part of that. I think that was 11 years ago now. I was laid off. And then when that happened, I started working for myself. I was a freelancer, accidental freelancer, because that wasn't the plan at all. But I was really getting a lot of work. And I was making more money than I was making in my last full-time job. And so that was a great experience. And And eventually I wanted to get back into the workforce. I saw what was happening at BuzzFeed, and they were really figuring out a way to make news go viral, which we were not seeing before, as everyone was really starting to think about what the digital footprint of media would look like. Excuse me. And so I wanted to get under the hood of the car and see what it was they were doing well and what they were doing right. And I did. And I had a great time working with the team there at BuzzFeed. And then ESPN came a calling and effectively, said I could create my dream job, which, okay, sign me up. And I did. And it is so, it's so weird to say this, but it's so real, is that every year is better than the year before. And I hope that does not stop, but I'm about to go into my 6th year at ESPN, and I try not to go in there with any, crazy expectations about what I think will come out of the year, because it truly has just been such a nice, pleasant surprise to see all of the things that I've been able to do, allowed to do, and the spaces that I've been in. So I do hope that continues, because it really has been a dream for me.
What advice can you give people about negotiating what they're worth on the table? Because you just stated before that before you went back to corporate world, you was a freelancer and branding your own business. So how did you negotiate what you're worth? Because, and companies, they kind of degrade the value of what you're worth.
Yeah, that's so great. And it's so crazy because I live in this world where I constantly have imposter syndrome. Like I find myself sitting at tables, and I constantly am asking myself, did they get the right Kelley? Like, should I be here? Am I allowed to be here? Have I done enough of the work in order to be here? And I think that a lot of us do things like that to some various degrees. And that can be the most dangerous thing to do, because when you do that, you start devaluing what you bring to the table and why you got that invite in the first place. And when that happens, you're very quick to just take what's offered, as opposed to fighting for what you really, are worth and what you should be getting. So my best advice is to establish an informal board of directors for yourself. I've always had that, and it's always changing, and it is diverse, meaning people from kind of different places in the world of media, in this case, that I can run things by. I can hit up my best friend and say, this is what is being told to me. This is what someone's offering. What do you think? Does that sound about right? And she can give me one answer. I can hit up someone else and they can give me another answer. And somewhere between, my kind of self-appointed board of directors, I can find the truth and I can figure that out. It's a lot easier now. It's a different path for me now, because I do have representation. I know a lot of people in the media don't necessarily have agents and managers to help them figure those things out. But I have to say, as someone who hates having that conversation, that is the best thing for me, to have someone else talk about money, because I hate talking about that. Because I know that I'm going to fold, that I'm going to crumble, and that I'm not going to stand firm in asking for what I want and what I deserve. And so that's been helpful. But I think if you can't, and if you don't have representation that looks out for you in that way, having that board of directors is so essential. It's so essential, because your board of directors are going to be people that care about you and that ultimately want to see you win and succeed. And they're also going to be, especially considering when you factor in the level of relationship you have with that person, they're going to be very honest with you in a way that people are not honest with you. I had to tell one of my mentees recently, who was, negotiating like the biggest opportunity they were about to get, very high profile job. And they were nervous because someone was like, oh my God, you shouldn't tell people like the salary people are offering you. And I said, well, let me stop you right there and tell you this, because this is very important. the only people who get hurt by not talking about, salary and expectations are us. It's the workers. It's not the companies. The companies would prefer us not to talk about it, because then we wouldn't discover all of the discrepancies between salaries and experience. So it is important to have, that trusted group of friends who can say, they offered you that. When I did that same job 2 years ago, they paid me, $30,000 more, or whatever the case may be, so then you're armed to go in there and say, I think we need to start here, So.
What does it mean to you that there is more representation in the White House? I mean, we just got African-American vice president, but what does it mean to you?
Well, I am one of the people who was saying all of 2020 that, and there are a lot of us, so I'm not taking anybody's credit, that once again, Black women will probably have to save the day.
Yep.
And I think, just even looking at the voting base of Black women, not only in this election cycle, but quite frankly, in the last 3 election cycles, you see the power of that particular voting base. And I think this year we really were able to see Black women's voice amplified and talking about the things that were important to them when it came to the ticket, and not just the top of the ticket, but all the way down. You look at something like, Breonna Taylor, and then the importance of local elected officials is exacerbated. It's just a far bigger deal, because you understand, what not paying attention and what not being informed can get you. And so I think that 2020 was really the year that Black women understood their power. And yes, Black women helped to elect the first Black female VP elect. And that is so important. And I think that a lot of us, myself included, felt very seen. And I don't often, comfortably talk about politics, because I was a newspaper reporter for so long. And while I've never covered politics, I still, felt far more comfortable hanging in the pocket of just being a reporter and not using my voice. But I think that it's almost undeniable about, if you know me, to know the things that are important to me, and the things that are important to me, I feel are represented in how some of this election, how it turned out. And again, I'm not just talking top of the ticket. I'm talking all the way down. And seeing Kamala, being inaugurated on January 20th will mean so much to so many people. Someone asked me the other day, they're a student at Howard University, and they asked, because they want to be this, they want to do what you're doing, they want to do what I'm doing. And they asked if I thought that their attending an HBCU would be a hindrance to them climbing. And I did not attend an HBCU. My dad did undergrad. And so I grew up, definitely entrenched in HBCU culture. And I was like, no, we just elected the first Black woman VP who is a proud product of an HBCU. I don't think we can now have any more conversations about the value of an education at an HBCU. January 20th, there are going to be so many people that feel seen and appreciated. You look at the number of Black doctors that we have, primarily they're coming from HBCUs. But I think seeing a Black woman on the biggest stage in our country, and thusly the world, because it is such a historic election, and it was such an important election. And then when you understand, her connection to an HBCU, I think that's just so important. So I just feel seen. And I know that a lot of other people feel seen or will feel seen because of that.
What advice can you give people that is actually trying to break into the industry? Because I know on my end, on the sports side, a lot of people, they don't want to put in the long hours, but they want to cover these events. They don't want to actually do the content writing. As you already know, journalists and a reporter, you have to have some type of writing. So from a woman that's been in the industry for X amount of years, that is very successful. What advice can you give those individuals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what has helped me be, a specialty reporter with entertainment and a little bit of sports is that I have a passion for it. Like I really care about the people that I'm interviewing, that I'm talking to. And I care about the stories that they want to tell and stories that they are telling. And I think that you have to feel that way about what it is that you're covering. And I don't even mean that from a fan perspective, because that's a different thing altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just have to care about the process. If you're talking about sports, you have to, and you're talking about like the NBA, for example, you have to care about the game. You have to know the tenets of the game. You have to know how to break down the game, because that's how you learn how to ask better questions. There are a lot of armchair coaches out there. There's a lot of brothers that watch the game and say, if I was playing, if I was coaching,
Mm-hmm.
but it needs to be bigger than that and broader than that. Like, we need you to be, experts, someone that can go on television and explain and translate to people who don't understand all of the nuances of maybe what they just saw or what's happening. And so I think that, it's just important to invest in that if this is what you want to do.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about your partnership with Jemele Hill and Gabrielle Union.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that. So, Jemele and I, we've been, we just realized it very recently. We've been best friends for like 26 years, which means that we met when we were 2, of course. And so we've known each other for a really long time. And, we had this idea several years back that we wanted to start a production company. And I think the thought is that we're both nonfiction journalists and storytellers. So I think we thought we would be living in that space. And then, we just started talking and just kind of mapping things out. We have writing sessions, and we were just figuring out that there were actual, scripted stories that we probably wanted to tell as well. And Gab and I have we've known each other for a really long time. And I would say we became friends some years back. And while we were on this vacation a couple of years ago, we were like, just having a really good time and just talking. And I told her that I think she told me first that she had, had this production company that she was getting ready to launch and was looking for projects and, kind of how that was going to work out and who the deal was with. It was with Sony. Her TV deal is with Sony. And I said, oh, that's really cool. I said, we haven't talked about it yet, but Jay and I have, a production company, and maybe we'll like send something to you or whatever. And she's like, sure. Now that was a really scary thing for me to even broach with her because, Jemele and I just respect her so much. She's, she's very good at what she does. She's worked solidly in this industry for so many years. And how awkward would it have been if we sent her something and she was like, thanks. But we had a project that we thought, she would like. And so I sent it to her, and like months after that vacation, actually, I sent it to her and then kind of like ran away from my computer. And to my surprise, she hit me up maybe like an hour later and was like, oh my God, yes, let's sit down and talk about this with my head of development. And we were like, okay. And we did. And then we went and pitched it to Sony. They loved it. And then it took us a really long time as we were learning how the process of how this side of Hollywood works with pitching to different networks. And when we met with Showtime, we just knew that they were the right home for this project. And hopefully it becomes a series. Right now it's a development, deal. And we're just so happy. And we're so happy that people responded to this news as well as they did. I think Jemele and I don't know about Gab, but Jemele and I were probably a little caught off guard at how quickly this kind of caught fire and became a thing that was reported. But it was really cool. I'm just so thankful and really excited to, you know, introduce these new characters to Showtime. So we'll see.
Yeah. So I see that you had interviewed Prince.
Yeah.
How was that experience? Like I would have died. I would have gave my life for that. That experience right there. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh, Prince was amazing. I didn't expect to sit down with him when I did. It was really like a, you know, a fluke, but it was when I was in Minneapolis for an NABJ convention. And I mean, imagine sitting next to Prince, who has like this perfectly picked out afro, and then he has gold lame pantsuit on and platforms, and it works because it's Prince, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was so funny because at one point he was like, well, we've been talking for maybe like an hour or so, and he said, we've been talking for long enough. I think it's time, you know, to release you to do whatever it is that we had planned on doing with our Saturday nights. And I was like, actually, I'm pretty happy with how my Saturday night is going. I'm, you know, sitting down and talking to Prince. I have no place else to be. And then he looked at me and then he like broke out laughing. And in my mind, my head's exploding like, oh my God, I just made Prince laugh and I'm literally dying. And it's so funny because I mean, I never get starstruck by anyone that I'm interviewing. But I think what happens is that whenever I get a chance to sit down with someone who I feel, you know, was wholly influential in my life or soundtracked, you know, my childhood, or someone that I grew up admiring, because that at this point that really isn't, I've exhausted that part, I think, of my journey as an entertainment journalist. But there are very few people, and Prince is one of them. Janet Jackson, I've never sat down with her, but she would be another one, and maybe two other people. And so for me, while I wasn't starstruck, I was definitely taking in all of that as I was sitting down with him. Like, it was one of those moments where I was like, how am I sitting at this table? This is crazy, you know, but it was so cool. And I'm so happy that I got a chance to do that.
And my last question for you is, what advice can you give people about overcoming fears, obstacles, and just moving forward within their dream or goal?
Another great question. The thing that I always love hearing from actors when I interview them, they say, is that they love, and very few people have said this to me, but it stuck out to me, is that they love doing the thing that scares them the most. I can relate to that because this scares me the most. You know, I had so much trepidation about people seeing how I interview people, because for so long, no one ever saw that. They would just see the finished product, you know, the thing that I was writing. And while interviewing someone for TV is completely different than interviewing them the way I would if I were writing a magazine piece on them. Just the idea that people get to sneak and see how I have conversations with people is the most horrifying thing I've ever gone through. It scares the crap out of me, but I do love it because it challenges me. I'm able to, for the first time in a really long time, learn something and grow in a way that I haven't grown before. And so I would tell people, find that thing that scares you the most, because I think ultimately that's the thing that's going to generate success for you, because you're going to work hard at it. Like, I feel like I'm an intern right now, and to feel like you're an intern 20 years after you've been doing something, I think, and I mean that in the best way possible, an intern, because I still get to learn new skills. I still get to grow in a way that I haven't been able to grow since I was like a newly minted, you know, college graduate. It's been a really long time since I've felt that I could be a sponge and soak things up and absorb them. And now I feel that way. And it's only because I'm doing something that scared the total crap out of me.
Nice. I want to thank you for joining me in today's episode. I definitely enjoyed everything you were saying. You gave me some gems as well as my viewers, and I definitely enjoyed that. Where can my viewers actually find your sports journey and whatever you're trying to do within your next projects?
Yeah. I feel like I keep people pretty updated on Instagram. So at Kelley L.Carter is where you can find me, but everything happens to be at Kelley L.Carter from Twitter, Facebook, and IG. So hopefully you can find me there. And thank you so much for the support. It means a lot.
Always. As well, you can find me on Facebook, Fago Franklin III. You can find me on Instagram, Superjournalist87. You can find me on LinkedIn, Fago Franklin III, or either you could just Google me for exclusive updates with all your favorite celebrities as well as athletes. Again, thank you for joining me, and definitely have a blessed one, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Bye.